Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you my definitive settings for the clearest possible picture in Red Dead 2, and that's going to be without any additional adjustments outside of the game. That includes DLSS because that is an RTX only feature. So let's not waste any more time, let's dive into the settings. Now in the graphics settings, there are three choices for the anti-aliasing within the game. What I use is TAA on medium, I turn FXAA on, and I leave MSAA off. MSAA is an extremely taxing anti-aliasing method for this game, and the reason we put TAA on medium instead of high is that TAA high produces a much blurrier image in motion. Now, I'm not sure exactly why, as I would assume TAA high would be a more taxing version of TAA, but as it is in the game, it does produce a blurrier picture. However, using TAA medium produces a much clearer image, and with the help of FXAA, it seems that the image clarity resolves a little bit faster than TAA on high and without FXAA on. And if you notice while playing Red Dead 2 in motion, it is often blurrier than when you're completely standing still. This is a cause of the anti-aliasing method in the game. If you were to turn off anti-aliasing completely, it would be incredibly sharp, but there would be flickering and horrible edges everywhere. And now aside from the anti-aliasing, I use motion blur turned off. I know with motion blur turned on, it can be a more cinematic and immersive experience, but it does add to the visual blurriness of the game. Now, something else that adds to the visual clarity in the game overall is parallax occlusion mapping. And with this, you really want to leave it at ultra, because any lower, you can definitely see that there's less depth in the overall image. And this setting isn't too taxing, so in my opinion, I believe it is worth it to leave it at ultra. So at this point we have TAA on medium, we have turned on FXAA to help with the stability of the anti-aliasing, we have turned off motion blur, and we have parallax occlusion mapping on ultra. However, while this does look clear enough, I think you can boost visuals a little bit more by turning on the TAA sharpening in the settings. However, if you do this too much, I think even more than 25%, the game will start to have those sharpened lines that are just a little bit too obvious. So what I do is I put it up barely 5 notches, and I combine that with my monitor's sharpening settings. I have my monitor sharpening setting to 50% in conjunction with the 5 notches on the TAA sharpening, but you can adjust this to however much you like. It's all about personally adjusting to fit your needs and your monitor. Now we should have a pretty clear picture. However, this is all while running the game at 1440p, but does it work with 1080p as well? And that's where things start to get a little tricky. 1080p in this game in general is a lot blurrier than higher resolutions, and I think they kind of built this game around 4K because on the Xbox One X, last gen's Xbox, this runs at a dynamic 4K, but the closer you are to 4K, the less anti-aliasing you have to worry about. But I know that it's just not really feasible for everybody to be running 4K, especially on computers that have varying build specs. So 1080p is a target for most people. So while the settings that we have implemented do produce a clear image, it just simply isn't going to look as clear in 1080p, and that's just due to the lower resolution. You can use the internal resolution scale to add a little more resolution to your picture, and this is going to cost for performance. And this is where you'll have to tinker with it by yourself and see what works for your setup. But I would personally suggest the 1.25 times resolution scale, as this is only 100% of your resolution plus an additional 25%. But I would also suggest to turn off FXAA while running the game at 1080p. I don't quite know what exactly is happening, but to my eye, FXAA seems to be muddling the picture a little bit more than it does with just TAA on medium. So aside from the clarity of the image that we've now been able to produce, the rest of the game settings are completely up to you, because while we have the basis for clarity, the rest of the settings will affect your game's performance. And for that, I do suggest, as a baseline for performance settings, the Digital Foundry curated settings, and that I will leave in the description below, and I'll also leave a link to their video in the description below. But that's all for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, consider subscribing for more Red Dead 2 videos, and have a good one.